The Azerbaijan Grand Prix was supposed to be McLaren's statement of power, the moment they stamped their authority over Formula One and proved that their revival was no fluke. But instead of celebration, the streets of Baku delivered chaos, heartbreak, and one of the most dramatic collapses of Oscar Piastri's career. What unfolded over that weekend didn't just shake McLaren. It reshaped the entire 2025 championship battle and left fans questioning whether the young Australian really has the strength to carry the weight of title expectations. It began in qualifying on Saturday, where Piastri, usually so composed and unflappable, made a mistake that stunned the paddock. Pushing hard into turn 3, he locked up and went straight into the barriers, ending his session prematurely. For a driver who had built his reputation on precision and calmness under pressure, it was the kind of rare unforced error that raised eyebrows immediately. It left him stranded 9th on the grid, a long way from where a championship leader wants to be, and it planted the first seed of doubt about how this weekend might play out. Unfortunately, that was just the beginning. When the lights went out on Sunday, disaster struck instantly. Piastri jumped the start, earning himself an automatic 5-second penalty, but before he could even recover, his car dropped into anti-stall. In an instant, he was swallowed by the pack, tumbling backwards before the race had even truly begun. Then came the final blow. Braking late into turn 5 on the opening lap, he lost control, slid helplessly, and smashed into the wall. His race was over before it had even started. Carbon fiber littered the track, his 34-race point streak was gone, and so too was the aura of invincibility he had built all season. This was his first retirement since his rookie campaign and his first genuine meltdown in Formula One. Speaking after the crash, Piastri didn't try to sugarcoat it. He admitted it was messy, admitted he had made mistakes, and took full responsibility. "I judged it wrong. A stupid mistake. Frustrating, of course, but we're all human," he told the media. It was honest and refreshing, but it didn't change the brutal reality. When you're leading the World Championship, a weekend like this is more than just a bad day at the office. It can change the entire momentum of a season. And that is exactly what happened. Because while Piastri faltered, Max Verstappen smelled opportunity. The reigning champion has been trailing at arm's length for much of the season, struggling to keep pace with the McLarens, but suddenly the door was wide open. Verstappen delivered exactly what you'd expect from him. Back-to-back wins that cut the gap dramatically. The deficit is still 69 points, but for Verstappen, that number is far from impossible. We've seen it before. Give him the faintest whiff of weakness, and he'll pounce. This is a man who thrives when others falter, and Baku might just be the turning point that breathes life back into his title defense. And then there's Lando Norris, McLaren's other weapon, and Piastri's biggest rival within the team. Norris had his own disappointing weekend, only managing 7th place when he needed to maximize points against his struggling teammate. It was a missed opportunity, but the bigger story here is the brewing rivalry between the two McLaren drivers. For months, the tension has been bubbling quietly beneath the surface, but weekends like Baku turn quiet pressure into open warfare. Inside McLaren, every mistake by one driver is fuel for the other. Every point lost is magnified. We've seen this dynamic before in F1. Senna versus Prost at McLaren, Hamilton versus Rosberg at Mercedes. A team divided by success can become its own worst enemy, and the early signs are there that McLaren could face the same fate. Into this volatile mix comes Mark Webber, Piastri's manager and mentor. Webber has never been shy about speaking his mind, but his recent comments were nothing short of explosive. He declared bluntly that Piastri must win the 2025 World Championship. Not Norris, not Verstappen, but Piastri. In a sport where PR-sanitized answers are the norm, that kind of bluntness is rare and dangerous. It was a gauntlet thrown down, and it sent shockwaves through the paddock. For Piastri, Webber's comments are both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, they serve as a public vote of confidence, a statement that his mentor believes he's the man to lead McLaren into its new golden era. On the other, it piles on crushing pressure. Because now, anything less than the title will be framed as failure, not just for Piastri, but for Webber's judgment as well. For Norris, though, the comments cut even deeper. Imagine being McLaren's loyal star, the driver who carried the team during its long rebuild, only to hear that the team's faith, or at least that of your teammate's manager, rests with someone else. It risks driving a wedge straight through the McLaren garage, no matter how hard team principal Andrea Stella works to hold things together. Stella has tried to downplay the drama, calling Baku a one-off mistake and reminding everyone that even great champions have nightmare weekends. And he's right, of course. Every driver, even Hamilton, Schumacher, and Verstappen himself, has had moments when nothing goes right. But that doesn't erase the psychological damage. In F1, perception matters as much as results, and Piastri's collapse has opened the door to doubt, division, and opportunity for rivals. The championship standings underline just how precarious this fight has become. With 7 races and 3 sprint weekends remaining, a maximum of 199 points are still available. Piastri leads with 324, Norris is just behind on 299, and Verstappen sits on 255. Yes, George Russell and Charles Leclerc are still mathematically in play, but realistically, this is now a 3-horse race. The gap between Piastri and Norris is just 25 points, essentially the margin of a single race win. And with Verstappen lurking, the room for error has evaporated entirely. All eyes now shift to Singapore, the next crucible in this championship. A year ago, Norris triumphed there with Piastri finishing 3rd, and the Marina Bay circuit is notorious for punishing mistakes. It's narrow, it's demanding, and it requires absolute focus. For Piastri, it represents a chance at redemption. If he bounces back with a win, the narrative will quickly shift, and Baku will be remembered as nothing more than a blip. But if he falters again, the cracks will widen, and the whispers about whether he truly has the steel for this fight will grow louder. The stakes couldn't be higher. This is no longer just about race wins and podiums, it's about legacies. It's Piastri versus Norris, with Verstappen circling like a shark waiting for blood in the water. It's about whether McLaren can keep its house united or whether the garage will split under the weight of rivalry. It's about whether Mark Webber's gamble to publicly anoint his driver as the chosen one will prove prophetic or premature. And above all, it's about whether Oscar Piastri can withstand the suffocating pressure of a title fight when the world is watching. Because make no mistake, one bad weekend can change everything in Formula One. Azerbaijan proved that. It destroyed Piastri's aura of consistency, gave Verstappen hope, and injected real venom into the McLaren rivalry. The story of this championship is no longer straightforward, and the road ahead is filled with danger. Piastri remains the favorite, yes. His speed, intelligence, and calm demeanor have brought him this far, and one race doesn't erase that. But Baku has left scars, and how he responds will define not just his season, but perhaps the next chapter of his career. So the question now is clear. Will Oscar Piastri rise from the wreckage of Baku and prove Mark Webber right? Or has the door been opened for Lando Norris and Max Verstappen to tear down his title dream? The answer will shape the 2025 season, and we won't have to wait long to find out.